So the first thing you should know is that the inspector has its own audio output. So if we go up here to ProPresenter and in Preferences or Settings, depending on which operating system you're using, and then go to Audio, presented by Church Tech U, it's the ProPresenter Show. On today's show, the inspector. What is it and what does it do? Hi and welcome again to the ProPresenter Show. This is the show where I teach you all about ProPresenter. My name is Paul Allen Clifford. And before we get started, if you've ever wanted to affect how sound or a still image or even video looks and where it starts and stops, things like that, go ahead, like, subscribe, and tell me about how you might use this in the comments field below. The inspector is one of the most powerful things within ProPresenter. It enables you to do things like trim video or change volume of audio or do a whole lot of different things. So I thought that I would show you just all that it could do. So let's head over to my computer and we'll take a look. So first thing you're going to need is a piece of media to affect. So I actually have one right in here. This is from our friends over at Church Visuals. They gave me permission to use this. So I'm going to right click on it and select Inspector. So the first thing that you should know is notice that there is a timeline here. So I can go through and by the way, it doesn't normally look this ugly. It's because I've got a filter on it. So anyway, you can go through, you can preview, and that's playing not where you can necessarily hear it. It's playing out of the speakers of my computer. So the first thing you should know is that the inspector has its own audio output. So if we go up here to ProPresenter and in Preferences or Settings, depending on which operating system you're using, and then go to Audio. Here, let me move the inspector out of the way a little bit. You'll notice here in 17 and newer, it's a little more obvious because this is its own box. In earlier versions, the word inspector wasn't as obviously tied to that. I didn't think. I could be wrong. Maybe other people found it more obvious than I did. So anyway, device here, you can select what device the audio from the inspector comes out of. So right now I'm using my MacBook Pro speakers, but if I had headphones connected to my computer, then I can just have my headphones and preview the video or the audio, whatever's in Inspector, do it there. I would probably then, for this main output, use like either a Dante virtual sound card or maybe a USB audio interface. Like Scarlett 2i2 is a fairly inexpensive one that I recommend all the time. So you could do that there. So that's what that does. So going back here, basically the reason why you might want to do it is if you get audio and or video with audio from people a little on the late side, or even if it's ever a possibility, even if that would be the exception, then you have the ability to look, preview it here in Inspector and listen to it here in Inspector. So that's the first thing. Secondly, by the way, we can, if I had multiple things selected when I brought up the inspector, I could go between them with this drop down. That's something pretty cool. Here we have the audio meters. These aren't precise and exactly something that an audio engineer would want to know, but it does give you kind of a sense of where this is and how loud it is in reference to other pieces of media. Here I can drag this right over here, and what that's doing is it's saying, hey, start it right here. This is what in video editing we call the in point, IN, where it starts. And then I've also got a handle over here where I can do the out point. Now I can also be more precise than that if I want. So let's say I can move the playhead here wherever I want it to be, and I can tap I and it'll move to exactly that spot. Also helpful, I can go back a frame, so you'll notice that this is changing to one less every time I click right here, or forward a frame. So if I need to be very precise where I want it to begin, I can do that. And then tap the I for that. Likewise, here at the end, I can put it wherever I want it to go and tap O for out point, which is the end of the video. So I could do that, or I can just drag it back to the way that it was there. So I've got that. This button takes it back to the beginning. This one goes back 15 seconds, forward 15 seconds. So here, let me type it forward, tap it forward a couple of times, and then go back 15 seconds. You can see there. So that might be helpful to you. And then we also have a 10 seconds from the end. At least that's how I have it set up right now. If you right-click on it, you can change how much that is. But that will affect this button that does the exact same thing, but for the output that's actually going via the slides layer in this case, or the announcement layer, or even the audio layer. So that will affect that. So let me change that to 25, and you'll notice it changed to 25 over here. So we've got that right there. So this is a play, then a pause. So that's what that does, backwards, forwards, and then right-click to select how long it is. This is how far into the video it is played, and this is how much time is left. So as we watch this, you'll notice that this is counting down and this is counting up. So that's what all that does. I could rename it right here if I wanted to. I could find where it's living on my computer by clicking this little magnifying glass right there. Show in Finder on the Mac, probably show in Windows Explorer or something like that on the PC. Right here, you can change by clicking on that. That brings up this dialog that allows you to change it to a different piece of media, or if it has disappeared completely, then you can use that feature to reconnect it to where the original piece of media is. This sets the thumbnail to the current frame, whatever that is. So I can, let's say I want it to look like that. I can click that, and now, and you'll notice down here it updated. This tells you the file type it is, so what extension it is, the total duration, what format, or normally we refer to this as codec. So probably for most people H.264 is what you want it to say. If it says H.265 or HEIC and it's a newer computer, you're probably perfectly fine. But if ProPresenter is just barely running it, then it might be worth having it transcoded to H.264. Size here is the resolution, so 1920 by 1080, which is also called full HD. And FPS is how many frames per second. So this is a more cinematic video. 30 frames per second is more like television. 60 frames per second, that's more like you would see that sometimes in sports. But those are the different frame rates there. So that's what everything here means. This second one enables me to change some of the stuff. Like I could slow it down if I wanted to, or speed it up. Do you like these videos, but you'd really like to learn from me in person? Well, I've got some great news for you. I am traveling around the country and maybe even around the world training churches on how to use ProPresenter. So I've got a either a 1 or a 1.5 day class that you can attend. For more details, head on over to TDM.fyi/events24, the top one right here, and register for the event nearest you. If there is no event that's near you, no problem. You can request one. So head on over to TDM.fyi / class request. That's this one down here. And you can say, hey, I'm interested in attending a class, or even I'm interested in hosting a class. Up to you which you prefer. In the last one, that is just information. It's not obligation, so don't hesitate to put your information in there, and I'll let you know when there's a class in your area, or we'll talk about what it takes to host a class. It's probably a lot less than you imagine that it is. So head over there, and I look forward to meeting you in person. So I'm actually going to double click in there and type in 100 so I don't have to manually just barely get it to where I want it to be. So I've got that. Scale to fit doesn't affect this one because it already fills the frame, but something like this, scale to fit, would zoom in until it either hits the top or bottom. In this case, it's top or bottom. Or if it was particularly wide but didn't have stuff on the top and bottom, it would scale in until it hit the left to right side. So that's what scale to fit means. Scale to fill zooms in all the way until it fits both top and bottom and left and right, but that might cut stuff off. But that's okay because we've got this alignment that enables you to align it. So basically move where it's cutting off. So helpful little piece there. Stretch to fill, if it's an abstract background or abstract piece of an image, you could stretch it to where it will fill it. I wouldn't do that with anything that is in the real world unless it's almost filling. Because in this case, this image of Jesus, if we applied that, it would make it look like Jesus just gained a lot of weight. So not helpful at all. Scale and blur, what that will do is it will take a duplicate of whatever's in the foreground, image, live video, or pre-recorded video, take a duplicate of that, apply a blur to it as a background to that. So here that would look pretty cool, but it won't necessarily, wouldn't do a thing on this one because, as I say, it already fills this. We can flip it horizontally, we can flip it vertically, or both vertically and horizontally. We can also crop it if we wanted to. And notice that I have these particular numbers here, so I could crop each of them very precisely, or I can double click on it and type it if I want. So that basically is not cropping it because it's cropping 0 pixels all the way around, but I'm going to uncheck that. Rotate it, I can rotate it 90 degrees at a time. So very helpful if you've got a vertical video that for whatever reason saved sideways, you can fix that in here. Playback, stop, or loop are the two kind of basic ones. So what happens when it comes to the end? Does it restart? That's loop. Or does it just stop where it is? That's stop. You can also loop it for so many times. Loop for play count is what that is, or for a certain duration. Loop for time is what that is. Now, when it gets to the end, what happens? Does it stay on the last frame? Does it cut to black after the last frame? Does it cut to clear so it's transparent after the last frame? Does it fade to black or fade to clear? In this case, I've decided fade to clear is what I want. Here I can manually type in the numbers for the in and the out points that I had set over here earlier. This duration will automatically be calculated based on how you do this, so notice that that changes as soon as I drag the out. It also changes as soon as I drag the in. So it does that math for you so you know exactly how long that is. Delay time is how long before it starts, and I've already talked about this. Next, I can add a transition on this particular piece of media alone. So if other things had a dissolve, but I wanted this to have a cut because it starts on black, then I could do that, for example. Next, we have this. This is why the video looks so ugly. Now look, oh look, it's much prettier because I had an effect on it. I can add multiple effects by going down here and selecting an effect if I want to. Notice how, wow, that's all kinds of funky. Or I can uncheck that and maybe recheck this. So whatever I want it to look like, I can do that. This drop down here, I can select remove effect, or I can change it for a different effect if I want to. Okay. And once I have the effects dialed in, I might have 2 or 3 effects that I want to apply to multiple pieces of media. Right where it says effect preset, I can save that and then apply it later if I want to. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck this and also remove that effect while I'm at it. Here I have the audio indication, and if the video does not have audio, it will not show up here. So keep that in mind, that it is smart enough to not show it when there is no audio. So if you're like, I need to lower the volume of this video clip, but you don't see this, chances are ProPresenter is saying there is no audio for you to lower or raise, what have you. Ramp in, how do you want it to fade in from an audio standpoint? How do you want it to fade out audio again? Channel routing, we can reroute things. So if you had 2 sets of stereo, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, maybe you want to send, sometimes you want to send audio from a video to your in-person congregation and your live stream, sometimes just your in-person congregation, sometimes just your live stream. You can set that up right here in ProPresenter. For each of these channels, I can mute the channels, I can solo the channels, I can change the volume of each channel independently, and double clicking in here, I can absolutely type in the exact number that I want. Finally, here I have the ability to add markers. So I'm going to add a marker right here, and what I can have happen is I can have any action that I could add to a slide or any macro, I could have it happen exactly at that point when this video plays. So an example that I often use is if I was playing the Passion of the Christ and my pastor said, hey, on Good Friday, since in this example that's what he would be talking about, on Good Friday we're going to play the Passion of the Christ, and when Jesus dies, I want the lights to go down instantaneously. Now the old way we would do it is I'd get the attention of the lighting person, like do all kinds of gestures because I wouldn't want to be loud where other people could see, and then I'd like count them down, right? Well, with ProPresenter, I could send a MIDI note, which the lighting console can see as a control signal, and have it automatically black out everything. So that's another way that you could do it as well. So, and by the way, I can right click on this and I can delete this marker here as well if I want to. By the way, I can add in markers over here as well. But that is all the stuff that you can have show up and that you can affect audio, video, or still images. Clearly you can't put the in and out point on the still image. You can't add a video effect on a piece of audio, etc. So the one that I showed you had everything, but it's a limited subset depending on the piece of media. You can right click and go to the inspector in the audio bin, by the way, as an example of something else you can do. So that's everything about the inspector in ProPresenter. If you like this content, you'd probably like my ProPresenter Quick Start course, so head on over to TDM.fyi/ProQuick. Give me your name and email address, and I'll make a login for you for free. Until next time, this is Paul Allen Clifford from TrinityDigitalMedia.com and ChurchTechU.com, reminding you to go out and change eternity.